Hey everybody, this is Dr. Jess. I am here today to talk about sign language interpreting. So you may see an accommodation that's assigned to one of your students that says sign language interpreting. I wanted to talk through a little bit more of what you could expect if you see this accommodation assigned, right? And some of it is related to, is our class online? Is our class in person? Is our class different places at different times, etc.? So this can be a little bit more involved in the sense that the folks at SSD might be talking with you to make sure to be aligned with your class, to make sure that when your student who is assigned the accommodation of sign language interpreting is present in classwork, that they also have their interpreter with them, right? So let's talk through a couple different scenarios and think about what it might look like in various settings, right? So let's talk about in person first. So let's say we have a class where it meets twice a week at the same time every time, right? It opens at this time, it closes at this time, it's always in the same room, done. That's pretty easy and straightforward because that's already in PeopleSoft, right? So it's in person, we have the class number, it's all done, right? Now, let's say that there are on-campus field trips or aspects of class that take place in different settings in the institution, right? Maybe they're, I have this in one of my classes. We meet in the classroom, but then we also meet outside the classroom because we're meeting with our on-campus client. We're hosting film screenings. We're doing community work for and with the CSUSB community. So if I had a student who needed a deaf interpreter in that setting, I would need to, I would wind up finding myself talking with the SSD office if I was going to be somewhere different with enough advance notice that if an in-person sign language interpreter was going, that they would know where to go as well, right? So this is also kind of a universal design for learning thing. So for me, because my class meets multiple places, I made a calendar for every single meeting time for the entire semester before the course even started. And I do anything and everything I can not to deviate from that schedule. So if I have a schedule like that, then I would just provide that schedule to the SSD team so that they could get it to the interpreter. Now, there is also Zoom interpreting even for in-person classes, right? If your student is using a Zoom interpreter, which can happen for a couple different reasons. One is that it could be the accommodation assigned. Another could be we just couldn't get an interpreter that day, or the interpreter called out, or there was some kind of other issue, right? Um, if that happens for any reason, or if a student is using a Zoom interpreter, even in your in-person class, typically they would open some kind of device and the interpreter would be on a screen for them. And then the interpreter would speak for them when the student signs to the interpreter. So it's like having a person physically present, but through Zoom, and the exchange happens that way, right? Always talk to the person, don't talk to the interpreter. Communicating with the person, talk with the person. So these are some options for our in-person classes. Let's say we have hybrid and we have different modalities on different days. Tell the SSD office which days are which modalities so that we can get the right kind of interpreters scheduled for the right modality, right? We can't, it's kind of hard to have an in-person interpreter when there's not an in-person meeting or an in-person space, right? We'll always do everything we can to make it work, but ideally we would work with you to make it as right as possible the first time, every time. So this is another one of those ones where if you have a calendar of like these days are this and those days are that, just shoot it across to us, right? It's good for everyone. It helps them to plan and put it in their calendar and practice their best, skills as um, as like a really strong student that they're growing into, but it also would help us tremendously to have that. And we won't have it, we won't have the calendar unless you share with us, right? We don't pull your syllabi from the department office. We probably couldn't even if we tried, right? This is your stuff. And we still need to tell the interpreter where to go. So we might need to find out some information from you, right? So in the spirit of collaboration and appreciative inquiry, that might be some of the conversations that we have together. Now, so we've gone from in-person to kind of the world of hybrid, right? Or even if it's multiple modalities at the same time, that could be a really good conversation with us, right? I mean, I open my Zoom even for my in-person classes. I'm like, hey, if you're super contagious, stay home and just appear on Zoom. Uh, Now there would be logistics with that if my student had a deaf interpreter, right? So maybe we might make a schedule together. Maybe we might have a Zoom interpreter for that class, in collaboration with the student, so that way the student had access the same way everyone else had access, if the student also felt that that was um, getting them the access that they needed, right? Some people really prefer the Zoom interpreters. Some people really prefer the live interpreters. Sign language is a very personal thing. So in person, multiple hybrid modalities, now fully Zoom. Okay, fully Zoom classes. Obviously, we're going to need a Zoom interpreter. Um, that Zoom interpreter is going to need a link to the class, and they're going to need to be able to access the class. So they're going to need to join and accompany the student into the classroom, just like they would accompany a student into a classroom in a physical space. They need to be able to accompany the student in the Zoom space. So we might need a schedule from you if it deviates from what's on PeopleSoft, and we would need the Zoom link. So we would not know the Zoom link to your class. And we don't have your syllabi, and we don't have your Canvas shell, unless you share it with us. So please, know that we're here to support you when you see this accommodation. Know how important it is that our students who receive this accommodation get to start class, and those really important first couple of days where like all the information shared about what to expect in class, what a daily routine is going to look like. We want them to have their supports on board for that, and we want to work with you to make sure that they do. So that is a little bit about interpreting as an accommodation. Please reach out to me if you have any questions ever. My email is jessica.nairn@csusb.edu. Please reach out to the SSD office too, right? If you email ssd@csusb.edu, you're going to get a response, and we're here to help you. We're going to help, support you in supporting our disabled students who are with our office. And that's what we're here for too, right? We know that we're only as good as the sum total of all of our parts, and we're all really, really important parts to having this accommodation flow from student to accommodations office to faculty back to student, right? So please, again, reach out if there's ever anything you need about this or any accommodation, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much.